Frank Fritz's case and Mike Wolfe's death are among the most stunning in a world of mysteries and thrills. The two close friends who created a television empire with American pickers are forever in fans' thoughts. However, when Frank's absence and Mike's abrupt death were revealed, all we believed about friendship, loyalty, and celebrity collapsed. This is more than a man's death probe. It's about a legend's fall and the evil side of fame, money, and power. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the notification bell to be updated on this case's unsolved riddles. This story continues. It may simply be the start of a nightmare. Join us as we unravel this enigma, for sometimes the truth is scarier than we thought. However, the details got increasingly strange as the examination continued. Medical records contradicted scene evidence. Frank was afraid, not simply about his health. According to some sources, he told a pal he felt watched. Sometimes he said someone tried to quiet him. Many thought it was a sign of persistent despair and anxiety. After the autopsy found poison in his blood, everything changed. Mike Wolfe, who first seemed distraught by Frank's death, appeared stunned and choked in the media. However, vigilant investigators found discrepancies. His statements were inconsistent, the time frame was incorrect, and weird bank transactions prompted concerns. Several elements fell into place, like a terrifying jigsaw puzzle. A strange money transfer, a broken security camera the night Frank was found unconscious, and an unusual DNA sample at his residence. Police investigated the two men's connection. Though close friends and co-stars on TV, they were vastly different off the screen. Arguments and intractable disputes occurred off-camera. Frank felt abandoned, supplanted, and dubious of Mike's allegiance. Mike, however, risked Frank returning and recovering his position. The trial lasted weeks, loaded with terrifying facts and terrible testimonials from both men's acquaintances. The verdict was given. Mike Wolfe, the famous character, died before justice was delivered, taking all his unfinished mysteries with him. The question persists. Was this the end, or merely the tip of the iceberg on television, where friendship, fame, and treachery dangerously mix? The public was stunned and grieved by Frank's untimely death at home. Social media tributes flooded in. Frank, the show's heart, was harsh yet likable, contrasting with Mike Wolfe's polished and attractive manner. Iowa launched a discreet probe 6 weeks after the funeral. A simple query began it. An alert medical examiner detected a difference in the autopsy report. Frank had fatal fentanyl levels. At first it seemed normal. Fentanyl is used to treat severe stroke pain. But there was one issue. Frank was prescription-less, no history of usage, and his friends said he was afraid of the substance. He never touched it. He had that chemical in his system only because someone placed it there. It was impossible to disregard their misgivings. Local cops contacted DEA. FBI investigated. A natural death became a full-scale crime. One name kept popping up in phones, GPS records, deleted emails, and texts. The public saw Mike Wolfe as a charming, innovative entrepreneur who had made antique hunting an art form. He was preoccupied with control, power, and most importantly, absolute ownership of the show's history. Following Frank's departure, Mike began making cautious, measured steps while concealing his genuine intentions. He trademarked Frank. As weeks after Frank's death, he surreptitiously asked a third party to buy Frank's firm shares, as if death were a chance to own the brand. Undisputed proof followed. Mike was filmed by a neighbor's doorbell camera near Frank's home the night authorities suspect fentanyl was lethal. Everyone doubted it. How could it be Mike Wolfe, who called Frank his brother on TV for decades? The apparently unbreakable pair. Evidence doesn't lie. Despite television appeal, a grim truth might emerge. As the trial began, it was like a reality show no one could escape. A dark, gripping drama as the entire nation witnessed every detail, testimony, and falsehood chipped away to expose a horrible and sad reality. Mike Wolfe wasn't simply accused of abandoning Frank Fritz, his confidant and travel buddy. He was also accused of ruthlessly poisoning his closest buddy to steal their reputation, legacy, and brand. He faced life in prison. Mike's untimely death occurred as justice was closing in. One of reality TV's worst episodes ended tragically with the law enforcement agency. But the narrative continues. A relationship and collaboration existed before the trial and death, dusty paths amid dilapidated barns and spiderwebbed garages. What broke that apparently unshakable bond? How could Mike Wolfe, who considered Frank his brother, be so cruel? We must go back to American Pickers' early days to comprehend this tragedy. The golden age of two like-minded friends with a passion and a desire to tell an authentically American narrative in the early 2000s, when reality TV was unspoiled by scripted dating shows or dramatic melodrama. Mike Wolfe's idea was simple yet unmistakable. Neither a producer nor an actor, he had no media backing. Persistence, an eye for antiquities, and a passion for finding forgotten gems were his strengths. Since childhood, Mike was a scavenger. He went door to door in tiny communities asking if anyone had anything to sell. Sometimes it was treasure, but mostly it was garbage, damaged objects, or worthless. It never stopped him. He wanted a show that captured the thrill of the treasure hunt, the excitement of bartering for each item, the fascination of finding lost gems, and the emotional connection between an object and its former owner. It was more than an antiques display. It was a memory tour. Then Frank Fritz arrived. Frank contrasted with Mike in many ways. Frank was quieter and humbler than Mike, who was talkative, cheerful, dynamic, and energetic. He loved antique toys, oil cans, and billboards, and was hands-on. He was more interested in the subtle intricacies than the showy looks. His eyes hid real value, which attracted him. They were high school friends, but life took them in different directions. Mike worked full-time picking, traveling over the US, while Frank was a firefighter and safety inspector before diving into antiques. Mike needed a trusted partner to help him realize his idea, and Frank was perfect, because of their exceptional complementarity, not because they were alike. Mike Wolfe eventually got History Channel permission for American Pickers in 2009, after years of trying. A seemingly easy show. Two men in a vehicle seeking for forgotten gems on America's rural roads. The program became a hit due to Mike and Frank's unique mix and storytelling. American Pickers had record-breaking viewership from season 1. Their love of antiques and natural chemistry with the hosts drew audiences. Mike's negotiation abilities and ability to find hidden value, paired with Frank's rich knowledge and collections experience, make the program more real and accessible than ever. The show's best part was the people, not the stuff. Each episode was emotional, with elderly people reminiscing, couples proudly discussing family antiques, and eccentric collectors enthusiastically sharing their private lives. Every corner of dusty barns and garages had laughter, tears, and memories resurrected after decades. American Pickers never mocked them. Instead, the show showed them respect, which touched millions of viewers over the years. As American Pickers gained popularity, the show's creators became famous. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz got famous after presenting at huge events and autograph signings. Show fans visited Mike's antique businesses in Iowa and Nashville because to their renown, success as usual on reality TV, costs. Fame changed Mike and Frank's once unbreakable connection by opening new opportunities and creating hard-to-bridge gaps. Mike Wolfe eventually became the brand's face. He became more comfortable in front of the camera, did more interviews, increased his business, and developed his own brand. Mike ran everything behind the scenes. His title was executive producer, managing brand-building deals, negotiations, and show material. The boundary between partner and boss blurred. Although Frank was still portrayed as an equal partner on TV, things were different behind the scenes. Those who worked with them said the tensions were years old. Frank felt abandoned, his thoughts ignored, and his talents unappreciated. According to former crew members, Mike started treating the program like his own rather than a collaborative effort. The power mismatch went beyond ego. Mike had an antique shop. Mike ran the production firm and made creative judgments. Wolfe's partners wrote that they could expand immediately and without looking back once this burden was lifted. The court received another email, revealing plans to develop Mike Wolfe, an independent brand. with the debut 3 weeks following Frank's death. These information convinced the jury of Wolfe's actual objectives. The GPS data also showed Wolfe's bespoke black Mercedes Sprinter vehicle near Frank's residence from 1:36 a.m. to 1:46 a.m. night of the event, one 10-minute slot. Wolfe gave Frank the deadly amount when emotional stress reached a peak, according to the prosecution. Marianne Fritz, Frank's sister, testified softly but firmly for the prosecution, as she detailed Frank's breakdown after the show's cancellation. His mental and physical condition deteriorated. He regularly told her that Mike didn't care and that his longtime spouse wanted him gone. The defense placed a handwritten note on Frank's desk in which Frank voiced his anxiety that Mike was following him and that anything would happen wouldn't be an accident. Elaine Temple, the following witness, quiet the court. Frank's neighbor testified tensely. She stated she couldn't sleep the night of the event because she noticed a TV show vent out the window. Frank's side door was softly entered by a guy. He waited before strolling around the house's rear without knocking. Elaine picked Mike Wolfe from a lineup shot but wasn't sure. She recognized his stance and behavior from movie after movie. The defense questioned Elaine's memory and nighttime illumination to invalidate her testimony. But the harm was done. The parts were slowly falling into place, creating a desolate scene. The defense was most emotional when Mike Wolfe testified. His attorney admitted that it was hazardous, but Mike was determined to proceed. He carefully approached the witness stand. The confident TV presenter America knew is gone. His voice quivered at first, but he recovered. "Like brothers," he said. "Mike, we developed something great, but it got complicated. Fame and wealth alter relationships. Though I handled things poorly, I never meant to upset Frank." He said the texts on his phone were sent while he was upset and stressed at work. "I regret my words, but I didn't murder him. I miss Frank daily. We fought. I promised never to injure him. I couldn't live with myself then." These defenses didn't sway the jurors. Evidence against Mike Wolfe was too overwhelming and persistent. After weeks of discussions in a sweltering courtroom where time seemed to stop, all eyes were on Mike Wolfe, a national TV celebrity suddenly standing still like a statue, the chilly light creating shadows on his pale face. A booming, powerful voice from the judge shattered the courtroom's tension. "Michael Wolfe is convicted." Gasping flooded the room and chilled the onlookers. All eyes were on Mike Wolfe, expecting a reaction, any sorrow or wrath. He stood still, his lifeless eyes staring unblinking. He then blinked long and heavily, as if processing a terrible fact for what seemed like a lifetime. Finally, he collapsed. Absolute helplessness. His legs collapsed, and his enormous bulk slid to the hard stone floor before anybody could respond. First frightened shriek as Mike Wolfe lay unmoving, arms spread face down, graying hair unkempt. The courtroom froze briefly, as if time had stopped. Then commotion broke out, with chairs scratching, footsteps thudding in terror. The medical crew kneeled beside him and started chest compressions to save the newly condemned guy. His pallid face was quickly covered with an oxygen mask. Concerned inquiries rang. "Where's pulse? Blood pressure? Call an ambulance." Despite the pandemonium, a terrible truth emerged. Once a symbol of discovering and restoring hidden treasures, the man who built a television empire from old garbage was now a sad relic, a living witness to greed and brutality. Courtroom death of Mike Wolfe. As the verdict was pronounced, news of his untimely and tragic death circulated worldwide, shocking everyone. How could a spectacular gossip become so nasty and tragic? How might a cherished show betray and kill? Mike's death destroyed viewers' perception of a cherished icon. Mike tragically demonstrated the terrible cost of fame, money, and power. The Frank Fritz case seems to test worldwide confidence when pushed to its boundaries. Since the offender was the victim's close friend, they had traveled together and called each other brothers. Mike's abrupt death at the site of justice left a powerful echo and many questions. He dropped as the decision was announced. As if it were the final blow, stillness appeared to reign. The guy who once represented the search for lost treasures was now a symbol of misguided ambition and bad decisions. Is that all? Are there secrets behind locked doors, hidden nooks to illuminate? the reality may startle us more than ever. If you want to learn more about Mike Wolfe's death and the Frank Fritz case, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Sometimes the truth is the start of another nightmare. If this narrative leaves many questions unanswered, join us as we seek the truth. Every element may transform the image and reveal hidden corners. To keep informed about this case, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Every new revelation might alter your understanding of the tale. Loyal watchers saw a shift. Frank became increasingly reclusive, missed advertising activities, and seldom appeared in interviews. Some rumors said Frank had health concerns, while others suggested internal conflicts. The program never addressed the matter, but social media kept reporting on it. Then it was official. Frank would go. An official reason was that he needed time to recover following back surgery, but no specifics were given. Fans were stunned by Mike's reaction, not his leaving. Many anticipated an emotional homage to his longtime partner, but he sent a curt, detached Instagram message. "Wishing you well." Frank seemed like another interchangeable part of a machine. The performance resumed without Frank. A new co-host appeared. The antique archaeology brand grew despite declining viewership. As usual, Mike Wolfe gave interviews and merchandise sold well. Frank Fritz disappeared. The truth was far from tranquil behind the scenes. Frank battled secretly. According to close pals, he felt abandoned by the show. And Mike, his longtime friend, he thought Frank deserved better. He saw himself as a co-host and co-founder, strongly connected to American Pickers from the start. He provided charisma and a strong fan base to the show. And now, he was silently and sadly abandoned. Frank plummeted with the shock. He started drinking again, stopped going out, gained weight, and got sad. His despondency led to a stroke. This started his catastrophic decline. What transpired between Frank and Mike is unknown. Some blame egos, others money for the repercussions. Some think a greater betrayal was hidden from viewers. Whatever the case, American Pickers' foundational bond broke. Frank's death should have woken us up and reminded us to be grateful. Mike Wolfe's silence startled the public. After his old friend's death, he didn't attend the funeral, post a tribute, or write any heartfelt words. It was merely an odd quiet amid the suspecting storm. A secret probe was underway. Toxicology indicated Frank possessed a deadly quantity of fentanyl, a hazardous narcotic, without a prescription. Questions arose. Which person gave Frank the drugs? Who benefited from his death? What was Mike Wolfe doing that night near Frank's house before he was found unconscious? Fame may be alluring but sometimes dangerous. Mike and Frank described it as a noisy, furious, uncontrollable roller coaster. Everything changed when American Pickers became a hit and the show's business grew huge. The show lost its simplicity. It was no longer exciting to unearth a 1930s motorbike under a dusty tarp in rural Tennessee. The pleasure of finding an antique oil sign in a rundown barn had faded. Everything was now about business, licensing, and behind-the-scenes influence. Mike Wolfe became a strong entrepreneur in that calculated environment, but Frank, his close friend, became a ghost of himself, slowly carried away by the storm he helped build. Mike Wolfe cemented his authority quietly. He employed agents, attorneys, and PR consultants. Mike trademarked unique American Pickers and antiques terms gradually. He created a corporate-like network of businesses by diversifying into retail and media rights. Meanwhile, Frank Fritz had a different dream. He wanted a simple existence to appear on TV, speak with fans, and find soulful antiques. Two of Frank's close pals said his relationship with Mike had deteriorated after season 6. A crew member recounted a season 8 Alabama incident. A Korean War veteran owned an old vehicle dealership where the crew filmed. Frank shared his love of gas station artifacts with the elderly guy in a touching exchange. A rare, warm, and heartfelt TV moment. The show broadcast with all footage drastically reduced. Instead, Mike negotiated pricing and emphasized antiques' resale value. Fran was outraged. He felt eliminated from the tale and his moment. Insiders say Frank wasn't alone in this. Others, including store owners, specialists, and pickers, had their sequences deleted unless they boosted Mike Wolfe's image. Mike wanted to be every episode's hero. Every aspect of American Pickers was controlled, from scripts to social media. Mike patented show terms to ensure that all product income went to his LLC. Mike's crew took over the network's social media accounts. His public image was crafted by personal advisors. His agents have to approve interviews. A former executive from the early seasons said Mike used his popularity to his advantage. Knowing the network needed him, he threatened to depart if things didn't go his way. In reality, everything went his way. The media smiled. In private, Mike was a bulldozer. Frank saw everything. He became frustrated while filming. In heated disagreements, he sometimes left. He sometimes refused to promote new episodes since he didn't like his portrayal. Frank thought Mike was being pushed as the lone star while he, who had built the program, was downgraded to a supporting position. Quickly, the production team observed Mike and Frank's spontaneous laughter had stopped. Forced, camera-scripted exchanges supplanted actual friendship and camaraderie. Except when required, they rarely spoke. The vehicle, once full of laughing and small-town anecdotes, was suddenly silent. Frank often drove alone as Mike built his fortune. Mike bought Tennessee and Iowa lands to extend his school archaeological digs and attract tourists. Fans waited hours to see his office or snap selfies with his truck. Items like t-shirts, mugs, posters, and autographed crowbars sold quickly. After a few seasons, Mike Wolfe became more than the host, become a brand. He launched individual projects. A former network official said there were internal conversations about offering Mike a new program without Frank. Wolfe vehemently rejected the reports, but doubt had been sown. Mike's silence and the celebrity gap upset Frank the most, according to various sources. Without Frank, Mike made decisions discreetly. He organized meetings without warning and changed scripts without his consent. It made Frank feel increasingly invisible. It hurt because his voice no longer mattered. Once a common vision, the show now had one leader. Health complications followed. Constant travel and an unhealthy lifestyle had harmed Frank's health. Crohn's illness, a chronic inflammatory bowel disease, makes traveling difficult. He had back surgery due to significant discomfort. Everyone expected Frank would heal and return to filmmaking after his hiatus, but it never occurred. Officially, the network just announced Frank was on medical leave. Fans sent hundreds of well wishes and speculations of his comeback surfaced every few weeks. Silence persisted. Frank received no calls behind the scenes. His name was seldom mentioned at meetings. Contacting the producers yielded ambiguous replies. Eventually, a choice was made. He vanished. Frank's name removed from ads, face replaced by a co-host. The performance continued, leaving him surrounded by the ruins of a once inseparable bond. Frank revealed himself in an emotional interview months later. He admitted to not talking to Mike in 2 years. His friend's apathy wounded him more than physical agony during his rehabilitation. "I stayed on the show," Frank remarked. "I was abandoned." That simple yet cruel message shook fans. How could an inseparable pair part? Two men who captivated audiences with American Pickers for almost a decade split ways coldly. How come Mike Wolfe has never addressed Frank Fritz's strange departure? Frank got worse after quitting the show. He became depressed after feeling deceived and neglected by his buddies. He became secluded, stopped replying to texts, and seldom left home. His weight fluctuated, his health declined, and eventually he had a stroke. A neighbor, who hadn't seen Frank in days, discovered him unconscious in his Davenport, Iowa, house. He was transported to the ICU in severe condition. It started as a tragedy. A tired middle-aged guy from years of disease, stress, and loneliness. But then the truth emerged. Initial hospital toxicology reports revealed disturbing details. Frank had a fatal fentanyl level. This substance can paralyze the nervous system, cease breathing, and kill in minutes. Frank had never used street narcotics. He hid from the public during his rehabilitation. Fentanyl entered his body how? It wasn't replied till Frank's death. On that day, the coroner performed a comprehensive autopsy. Reanalyzing blood samples and toxicology tests ensured nothing was missed. Final verdict was deafening. Frank came upon synthetic fentanyl 40 times stronger than heroin. It wasn't prescribed, on his medical records, or self-administered. His body received it by injection. Family and acquaintances said Frank was always afraid of needles. Getting a flu vaccination made him nervous. He never injected anything and only took medicine when necessary. Frank's loved ones couldn't imagine him injecting himself with fatal narcotics. Frank's upper thigh had a little wound that wasn't evident until he took off his pants, which was disturbing. That made it no longer an accident. It was murder. Mike Wolfe was discreetly arrested for first-degree murder and attempted evidence tampering after a comprehensive search of Frank's residence. Once revered across the U.S., the face now seemed tired and hurt. His smile was gone, replaced by deeper wrinkles around his eyes, and his look was sad. Mike strongly refuted all charges. In the first trial, he pled not guilty, arguing the evidence was circumstantial, but the actual result would be disclosed in court without mercy. After Frank's death and the fentanyl revelations, Mike Wolfe, a national TV star, was tried in a landmark trial. Prosecution used troubling evidence throughout the trial. They said Mike Wolfe's demand for control had become an unhealthy fixation. Frank was no longer a trusted collaborator, but rather a hindrance to his objective of ruling the empire he so desperately craved. A prosecution called Clinical Psychologist documented Wolfe's conduct based on interviews and videotaped evidence. He said Wolfe had narcissistic personality disorder, arrogance, lack of empathy, fixation with control, and a need to be admired at any costs. As a scary Mike voice recording played, the became quiet. He called Frank a burden in a private discussion. Mike emailed his business partner, "When all of this is mine, we can scale without hurdles." Everyone knew he was talking about Frank, not the program. The prosecution accused Wolfe with murder and presented the case as a business choice, a cold, calculated choice, the last stage in a lengthy campaign to remove obstacles to his control. The smile that made him famous nationwide and secured him million-dollar contracts disappeared in court. Justice stripped Mike Wolfe. Every secret thinking, planned maneuver, and vicious goal was revealed. Detectives began investigating Frank's death 3 weeks later. Wolfe secretly applied for image and signature control. His lawyer also requested that Frank be removed from the antique archaeology company, which increased suspicion. The autopsy report followed. An odd needle-like wound on Frank's upper thigh rendered suicide implausible. After a stroke, fentanyl was injected into his weak body at lethal dosages. More significantly, it showed that the dose was purposeful. Mike Wolfe sat silently in court as evidence piled up. The vehicle, video, digital documents, witness testimony, financial motivation, police inquiry findings, and his silence. A protracted stillness since Frank's death, no reply, passion, or indignation. Official charges were made. First-degree murder, 2 obstruction of justice charges, and 1 fraudulent use of a deceased person's digital identity. No bail for Mike Wolfe. Mike first spoke through his attorney. "These charges are entirely baseless. Mr. Wolfe mourns Frank's death as a brother. He totally cooperates with the inquiry. We think the truth will triumph when the whole picture is presented." At the trial, the jury discovered that Mike Wolfe had initiated deliberate measures to take over the American Pickers brand in Frank's final year. He secretly changed his commercial companies, renegotiated contracts with the History Channel to remove Frank from the show, and petitioned for preferential income and distribution control without Frank. After Frank quit the program due to health difficulties, Wolfe's legal team contended these were smart commercial moves. An email addressed to Frank 6 weeks before his stroke depicted a different image. Wolfe's partners said that once the weight was lifted, they could expand immediately and without looking back. Another email given in court indicated intentions to create Mike Wolfe, an independent brand, 3 weeks after Frank's death. Additionally, Wolfe's bespoke black Mercedes Sprinter vehicle was near Frank's residence from 1:36 a.m., which convinced the jury of Wolfe's genuine intention, to 1:46 a.m., just 10 minutes the night of the tragedy. Wolfe injected Frank with a deadly amount of fentanyl at the height of emotional strain, according to the prosecution. Mary Ann Fritz, Frank's sister, testified that Frank was heartbroken after being cut off the show in a mild but powerful voice. He was in crisis with his physical and mental health. He often told her Mike didn't care and wanted him out of his life. Another surprise came when the defense displayed Frank's desk's handwritten letter. Frank worried that Mike was watching him and that anything would not be an accident. Elaine Temple, the following witness, quiet the court. Frank's neighbor testified tensely. She couldn't sleep the night of the event. A vehicle from a TV show appeared outside her window. Frank's side door was softly approached by a guy. He stood there without knocking before turning around to the rear of the home. Elaine pointed to Mike Wolfe in a lineup shot but wasn't convinced. The man's stance and behavior were familiar from TV. The defense questioned Elaine's recollection and nighttime lighting, but it was too late. The parts were slowly falling into place, creating a gloomy image. The defense was most emotional when Mike Wolfe testified. Although his attorney recognized it was hazardous, Mike was eager to proceed. He cautiously approached the witness stand, no longer the confident TV personality America knew. His voice quivered at first, but he recovered. Mike compared us to brothers. We created something great, but it got complicated. Fame and wealth alter relationships. Though I handled things poorly, I never meant to upset Frank. He said the texts on his phone were made while he was agitated due to job stress. I regret my words, but I didn't murder him. I mourn Frank every day we argued, but I would never hurt him. Can't live with myself if I did. However, these defenses did not sway the jury. Evidence against Mike Wolfe was too overwhelming and persistent. The once national television hero Mike Wolfe, now standing immobile like a statue with frigid light on his pale face, was the focus of attention after weeks of discussions in a claustrophobic courtroom where time seemed to stop. Courtroom tension was broken by the judge's strong voice. Michael Wolfe is convicted. Group gasp. All the witnesses felt a chilly breeze rushing down their spines. Every eye was on Mike Wolfe seeking a reaction, any sorrow or wrath. But he stood still, looking blankly. He then blinked long and heavily, as if processing a terrible fact for what seemed like a lifetime. Finally, he collapsed. Absolute helplessness. After buckling, his enormous bulk collapsed on the cold stone floor before anybody could respond. The first frightened cry boomed through the courtroom as Mike Wolfe lay lifeless, arms splayed out, face down, graying hair tangled. In that first instant, the courtroom froze like time stopped. Chaos ensued. Chair screeches, heavy footsteps and frightened sounds filled the air. The medical crew kneeled beside him and started chest compressions to save the newly condemned guy. His pallid face was quickly covered with an oxygen mask. Fearful queries rang out. Where's pulse? Blood pressure? Get an ambulance. Despite the pandemonium, a terrible truth surfaced. After avarice and ruthlessness destroyed his television empire, the man who had once embodied the discovery and resuscitation of hidden treasures was now a melancholy relic. Courtroom death of Mike Wolfe. As the verdict was revealed, word of his untimely and spectacular death circulated worldwide, shocking everyone. How did a fantastic rumor become a devastating reality? How did this popular TV program end in betrayal and a tragic death? Mike's death destroyed viewers' perception of a beloved icon. Mike tragically demonstrated the cost of fame, money, and power. Frank Fritz's case tested the worldwide public's trust because the offender was the victim's best friend, a man who had gone through it all with him and called him a brother. Mike's unexpected death at the site of justice created many doubts. As the decision was announced, he fell, as if the moment had ended. Stillness appeared to reign. The guy who once represented the search for lost wealth was now a remnant of reckless ambition and bad decisions. This narrative of Frank Fritz and Mike Wolfe is about ambition, treachery, and the cost of fame, as well as a damaged relationship. Every gorgeous film has secret nooks the audience never sees. Sometimes the truth hurts more than we think. Once the star of a beloved TV show, Mike Wolfe today represents the fallout of reckless ambition and bad decisions. His death, just as the truth emerged, ended a life and a narrative millions loved. The truth may be unpleasant, but we cannot forget it or its lessons. Truth is sometimes a beginning, not an end. A start to fresh stories, discoveries, and unanswered questions. Thank you for joining us on this trip. Remember, sometimes what we know is simply the top of the iceberg.